if I saw another day, only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, thinking off about the same mistake. Darling, will you go away? It won't be as simple for you.
Right. Hey guys, yo guys, Old Man G here, RDS, back again for another Sunday debate show. I'm joined by Matthew, who's been in the chat, who's been kind enough to come on, and also Yasir, who is on his way. And we are going to be discussing who we think is, or ranking certainly, the best Manchester United centre-backs, at least of recent memory anyway. Before we get into it, if you need your channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter, United X, and smash the notification button to make sure you know when we're going live. But first and foremost, Matt, thanks for coming on, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm very well, thanks. Thank you for having me on, Red Devil.
No
Much
problem.
appreciated.
No
I'm going to enjoy this.
No problem. And just shout out to those who obviously be in the chat as well. Obviously, Matt, who's in the chat. Eddie as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you, bigging up. Obviously, shout out to those who are watching us on Facebook and Twitch as well. Appreciate it. Shout out to Niall in chat as well. And stay tuned now. We are having the members hangout tomorrow. That is going to be going ahead, to get your questions in for that as well. So yeah, hopefully this is going to be a really good show, and I'm looking forward to it. So I guess I'll start first before we even get into it. That that a lot of I think the saddest thing about doing this list is that a lot of the centre backs that we're talking about, I think are in this list anyway, retired almost 8 to 10 years ago, and since then I don't really think that United have really had the quality centre backs that you probably see in the thumbnail, or that you probably see around. That for me is the saddest part. I mean, at least with the number sevens. Well, actually, the number seven's probably similar as well, really. I mean, a lot of the players in these top thing lists, you're looking at players that probably played before 2014, 2013, to be honest. For the membership was no, it wasn't. So it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So I answered your question. So it wasn't. It will be on Monday, however. So that's the saddest thing about this. I don't know what you think about, what your beliefs about. Do you think that I mean, can you even think, to be honest, of a centre back after that started playing for United after the year 2013-14 that you would put as one of the top centre backs for United, Matt?
No. Post Fergie, we've never had truly world-class players, I think.
Okay.
I've never known us to have that one truly standout player we've had post Fergie, and that goes for all positions. It's all been, we've had some great players, but we've never had that truly world-class player. I think Pogba, when he came, he was slightly overrated because he came to us when we didn't have the team built for him. At Juventus, he had the team built for him. At international level, France's got the team built for him, and he's probably the closest we've had. And if you look at all the other positions, we've never had anyone of that ilk, really. I mean, or
at least in their prime, anyway. So, for example, I'd class Zlatan as world class, but we got Zlatan obviously when he wasn't in his prime. We've got Cavani when he was not in his prime. You know, that type of thing. So if we get a player that's known as to be world class, I mean, I guess Di Maria at the time we got him was world class, but we didn't want to be at Manchester United, so I guess there's that.
But see, that's a big problem. It's Di Maria doesn't want to be at Man United, so you know he's never going to give you 100%. I wanted Napoli Cavani, not PSG Cavani. At Napoli,
Exactly.
Cavani was just something else.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. If you take 10 years off Zlatan, yes, we've got a world-class forward, a proper world-class forward, but I think the age was against him. And I know he's just won the league with AC Milan, but that's Italian football. It's not as intense as English football, as the Premier League.
No, I don't disagree. Shout out to Eddie Man in the chat. Big up RDS and Matthew. Good to hear you. You're on with Old Man G. Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you very much in the chat.
Big up, Eddie.
Evening Red Dose Studio Plus Matthew. Thank you, Box. Appreciate it being in the chat. Hi now and everyone else in the chat. Thanks, guys. Thank you guys for the show. Hopefully we'll have a nice debate, conversation, discussion mostly. So we've obviously said that, like, let's be real, like Manchester United have not really don't really have haven't had any really quality centre backs the last 10 years, which is depressing in of itself. But why don't we talk about, I guess, the centre backs that like have like made a name for Manchester? I'm going to start with someone that I think the one centre back that I think Ferguson actually made a mistake with, and that is your man JAAP STAM. JAAP STAM was, you know, when we're talking old school, but also technically good centre back, you know, JAAP STAM was that dude. He was that guy. He was the JAAP STAM is like, if we're talking about players that I would love to be in this current Manchester United side, peak JAAP STAM is that. Like right there and then. Like, I mean, I don't know what were your initial thoughts of JAAP STAM, man?
I loved him. I did. For me, I think he's our greatest ever centre back in the Premier League. He had everything. He was quick. He had good reading of the game. He was imposing. He had an imposing figure about him. Players were scared of him. I used to see pictures of him, and he kind of got his head down. He wasn't looking at opposition players. He was sort of looking through them, and he scared them. He scared them, and we've never had that before. And a lot of the time, players are just, they wouldn't even try to take him on. They'd either go backwards or go sideways because they knew they couldn't beat him. Big mistake by Sir Alex to let him go, and I was gutted when he left. I was absolutely gutted because I loved watching him play.
I think it was one of the biggest mistakes because I think we signed, Gabriel Heinze, I think was his replacement.
Yeah.
And he just never popped off, in my opinion. It just didn't work. It was, I know that he was hot tempered at times, but like, you know, for him, you know, Beckham leaving, I was like, not so much a big deal. But JAAP STAM leaving, like, I think really, you know, really created a hole. I mean, I've got some statistics that I just want to share just to sort of back up. I'm on the Premier League sort of website, so if you can see, 79 appearances in the Premier League, 1 goal, 52 wins, 5 losses, clean sheets 22. They're not a lot of stats here because it's not. But what apparently 11 yellow cards, 0 red cards. That I find very, very hard to believe. But that's according to PremierLeagueStatistics.com. Eddie says JAAP STAM was a beast. United created too early. Exactly. Also, Boxer. Why did he leave again? Because he fell out with Fergie. That's basically the reason. This is talking about De Jong. We might briefly touch into that. There's Boxers. There's about 10 MFC Premier League centre backs I take over as right now. Varane, PL still pending. Yeah, I mean, just this JAAP STAM was just a beast, man. He just like, and obviously the fact that he was part of that Premier League trio, where Fergie won the Premier League 3 times: 98, 99, 99, 2000, 2000, 2001. So he wins a treble in terms of Premier Leagues, and he wins a treble in the 98-99 season. I mean, a beast.
Yeah. Part of the three-peat. It was at Man United for 3 years, 3 league titles, part of the Champions League winning team, and then he went twice to Milan and he carried on winning. Yeah,
exactly. And that was a time when AC Milan were on their ascendancy as well. I mean, what more can be? I mean, you know, I don't know what your thoughts are, guys, in the chat about JAAP STAM. I mean, like, just I mean, let me see if I can just find some. I had. Let's see. I'll just see some. Yeah. Okay. Transfer market's actually quite good actually. So just looking at his career stats. So yeah. So 1 Champions League, 3 Premier League titles, FA Cup, and then he obviously was at Ajax as well. So that might be a hint. You know, for those people saying that Ajax centre backs are overrated, we signed one of the. We definitely signed. Actually, no. He wasn't. Let me get that wrong. It wasn't Ajax. He was at PSV. So let me just correct myself. Just have a look. He also did play right back at times. That was something that I didn't actually clock on. Actually, he actually played right back at times, but obviously his main position was centre back. He obviously international with Holland, although they didn't actually win. Didn't actually win the Euros. That's the nature of Holland as well, though. Won the Serie A titles. So yeah, what more can you say about this guy?
There's nothing more to be said about STAM. Simply our greatest ever Premier League centre back, but no one. A lot of people will talk about Ferdinand, VIDIC. They're great, but STAM's that one level above for me. And that STAM kind of had it all. It was extremely quick for a man of his size. Exactly. A lot of people underestimated just how quick he was. His reading of the game, aerial dominance, and it just had an all-round sheer presence. It's a bit like Van Dijk now. People talk about how good Van Dijk was. He was Van Dijk before Van Dijk.
I actually had a versus debate on my show, like when my channel was in its infancy. So if you're a member, you'll be able to see it. But we had a discussion about Rio Ferdinand, Jaap Stam versus Van Dijk. And it was close, to be honest. It was really, really close. Because certainly regarding what he achieved at the club, I mean, Van Dijk is awesome, but I mean, technically speaking, Jaap Stam is such a short. Jaap Stam in 3 years won 3 titles in the Champions League, back to back. You know, amongst being the bedrock of Manchester United's defense, and then there was a gap that just was never. It just wasn't recovered after that. Like it just really wasn't. You know. Let me just go. By the way, if you have any questions in the chat or any comments about that, let me know. I'll obviously be reading them, guys. Abbas Jonas says, hello, everybody. Okay, good to see you, Abbas. Where is Magpie Studio today? He's not here. Shout out to you, Abbas, though. I'm not going to read that other comment. Johnson, Berg, Evans, Jones, Bruce Powers, O'Shea, Vidic, Ferdinand, Blind, Silvestre. Well, we talk about some of those actually. So I'll bring bringing up some of those while we rank them actually. Jaap Stam was good. Yeah, I mean, even rival fans. That's the thing. When you know your player's good, when rival fans like, yeah, we can't really hate. You know, we can't really. We just can't. Like I have rarely ever heard someone say Jaap Stam was overrated. You know, from even from rival fans, you know, they'd be like, no, this guy was this is a centre back that I would like to have in my team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to appreciate greatness, no matter who to play for. And Jaap Stam was just, for me at that time, he was the best defender in world football, bar no one. If you look at all the centre backs in world football around that time, there was some great ones. Jaap Stam was just head and shoulders above the lot of them. And Fergie said in him, and Fergie admitted this himself, it was his biggest mistake in football. And Fergie's made a few mistakes. He's the greatest football coach we've ever known and ever seen in modern football. And even he admitted getting rid of him was a mistake. It should tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, exactly. Because when he let likes of Beckham and Van Nistelrooy go, it was like, you know, it was a blow, but you saw what came in afterwards.
It was replaceable.
It was replaceable, but with Jaap Stam, like he wasn't really replaced until, you know, maybe Vidic and Ferdinand came in, but even still, that presence, that captaincy just wasn't there. Eddie says, what did they fall over? Was Stam to be for his boots like ins? I think there might have been an element of that. You know, go on, Murray.
If I recall, it's something to do with Stam writing a book and he wrote something on it, and Fergie didn't take too kindly to it.
Yes, yeah, because I think boxers here, you have some publisher book or someone did on his behalf talking about the financial details of the deal implicating Man United plus Fergie, I think. Yeah, so I think there was something like that. Yeah. This was around the time the use of stats for sports science was first used, and they advised Fergie that Stam was a little off the pace in certain areas, which backfired on us as he played on for years. Yeah.
His stats went backwards because team players didn't want to take him on. Players moved backwards from him or moved sideways. They didn't want to go head to head with him because they knew they couldn't beat him.
They are. I don't know why we listen to the advice of this is the problem with stats sometimes. Like, I think stats have an important role, but as HH and other people would say, that's why sometimes you need to have the eye test, as in what is that person showing as a footballer? What can you see? What are they doing? You know, like, stats are important, but they have to have context. And if you just rip them out of the context, you know, you get what we had, which is just basically telling Stam, okay, bro, you got to go away, you know, which is annoying. Shout out to Man United. He says, I agree. Van Dijk was good, but is he miles better, or even better than likes of King, Hippier, Company, Carvalho, and Adams? Pre-injury Van Dijk, I would say was, but the problem with Van Dijk is that Van Dijk has only really been at Liverpool for what? This must be his 4th season, I think. But I think the thing with Van Dijk, in fairness to Liverpool fans, is that Van Dijk, like, there was a noticeable difference when he came into their defense. You know, he took Liverpool's defense to another level. So before Van Dijk came in, they were conceding like 3 or 4 goals. They were scoring goals with Salah and Mane, etc., but they were conceding so many goals, and that's why they weren't getting anywhere, because they were dropping points to bum-ass teams, and they weren't progressing. So when Van Dijk came in, it was like, right, okay, shut up shop. We're now conceding less goals. We can now actually go and actually properly compete for the title, for the Champions League, etc. So I don't think it's necessarily much that, like, Van Dijk is like, oh, this is the best defender ever. It's just the fact that his impact in that Liverpool team was clearly noticeable, because you can clearly see a before and after. Before Van Dijk, conceding 3 goals a game. After Van Dijk, not so much, you know? So, go on, mate.
What Van Dijk done, he elevated the defence around him. Plus, you've got the sport of having Fabinho in front of him, who, I don't want to say he's the best CDM in the world, but he's within the top 3 in world football. But that chat there by Box, where it talks about King, Keep Your Company, Carvalho and Adams, I would put Carvalho slightly ahead of Van Dijk. If I'm building a team and I've got a choice, Van Dijk or Carvalho, I would take Carvalho. I just think he's a slightly better defender. It's nothing against Van Dijk. It's just, I remember watching Carvalho when he came to the Premier League, and he was partnered with John Terry. He elevated John Terry. A lot of people, right? John Terry is a great centre-back. I think he helped Terry get to that level.
No, exactly. I mean, and that Mourinho season when they kept goodness knows how, I think they barely, I don't know, they conceded, what was it? I think it's the record, that pairing. They've got the record of Premier League clean sheets, and the amount of goals they conceded was just like was next to nothing. So, you know,
I think they've still got that record.
They do. They do. They still have that record, and so that's why, you know, I mean, we'll probably at some point have a debate. So we're talking about United centre backs. We might actually have a discussion about best centre back pairings of all time at some point, especially as the football season comes closer and closer. Boxers, Itis, Key, and Yo, what's up? SMB, thank you very much for joining the chat, man. Always appreciate you, brother. Get your questions in and your thoughts on the best United centre back. So let's quickly move on. We talked about Stam. Now, what about my man Rio? My man Rio Ferdinand, man. Rio Ferdinand. Matty, initial thoughts on Rio, buddy?
I was an amazing centre back. It's a Rolls Royce at the back. Do I think I like with Rio? With him, he always had fantastic positional play. So when him and Vidic were together, he would allow Vidic to do what he does best, and that's just go head to head with the forward, and he would just position himself 2 to 3 yards slightly around him and just anticipate where the ball's going to go. Now, that's fantastic reading of the game, and he had the ability to pick a pass as good as anybody. A lot of people compared him to the great Duncan Edwards, and I can see why. His ability and his reading of the game was second to none. As far as that, his finishing, I remember, I think it was 2 seasons in a row, he scored 90th minute winners against Liverpool. That's always going to be a big plus in my books.
No doubt. I mean, just getting some stats in because these are probably more up-to-date stats here for Rio because it's more defined. This is Premier League stats specifically. 504 appearances for United in the Premier League, 11 goals, 291 wins, 103 losses, clean sheets 189, goals conceded, and obviously this is across all the seasons, 180, tackles 292, tackle success rate 81%, which is pretty high. Goal line clearances 1,718, 304 interceptions. Recovery challenges 916, duels 764. Only had 5 own goals in his entire United career. Errors leading to goal only 2. 8 assists. What else? 36 yellow cards. Only had 1 red card in his entire United campaign. That's pretty impressive for a defender.
Oh, yeah.
Very impressive, and obviously 11 goals.
Yeah. He was a very disciplined defender, and that shows with just the 1 red card. A lot of defenders will be rash, where Rio always trusted himself in his pace, and he had that long stride. It's very similar to the athlete, the Jamaican, the sprinter, I can't think of his name, Man United fan, Bolt. He's got that long stride on him, hasn't he? It's almost like a double stride in a sense, and that. And he always had faith in his own ability, in his own pace against forwards, and that takes confidence. And he had that. He was just an all-round world-class player. I would put him second best behind STAM. I just think STAM was that slight level above him, but for me, Rio was second best.
SMB says if Rio played for is that Barca back when they were Barca, they would love him. That's fair.
Yeah.
Also, if Rio played in Italy in the 2000s, I guarantee people would rate him higher. I think that's a fair point, actually.
Yeah.
There isn't a conversation because back when in the early 2000s, Italian defenders were like that was the sexiest sort of thing in football, and I don't think we really at that time really rated centre backs really as high. I don't think it was really. I think midfielders were kind of the in thing. So yeah, there is an argument to be had that like if maybe Rio had done like a JAAP and gone to Italy, maybe he'd be seen as more of a world-class centre back than he was with his obviously stint at Manchester United. That's I guess that's a possibility, Eddie says, Matthew, big points there. Rio also got a clutch win against Swansea in a title-winning season at home. Very true.
Yeah.
Very, very true. I remember that as well. Very, very true. And also Man's got a Champions League as well, so something that as much as I love Vincent Kompany didn't win a Champions League with Manchester City despite his capital impact. Although he did score a fantastic goal to seal the title against Leicester City in his last season. That was a pretty good goal. Ferdinand was at Royals also centre backs. Him and Vidic were the perfect partnership. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've noticed a lot of EPL fans don't really know how to judge defenders like that, but that's just me. You mean with Rio? Yeah, I think a lot of EPL fans. I think that. I mean, maybe it's changing now, but I think that obviously the focus or emphasis was maybe often more on can they tackle or last ditch minute tackles, etc. The passion, all that stuff. That people would often hype that element. But I think with Rio, you got someone who was actually also good on the ball, and also someone who wasn't rash, and who was like, who was technically gifted, So that's sort of, I think, almost original ball playing centre back, which is sort of a deviation from the traditional put a tackle in, track back, that type of traditional sense. Not that that's not important, because you should defend importantly, but you know what I mean.
But Rio had different elements to his game. His passing range was phenomenal. His reading of the game was sensational, and it was always cool, calm, and composed on the board. And he made defending cool for me. Rio, he made the art of defending cool. It's a lot of people liked defending back when Rio was playing because he made it look cool. The way he strutted around in defence, and he was always switched on. He was always aware, and whether it be VIDIC or Sol Campbell when he played for the national team, he was able to work out what his centre back partner's game was, and he would tweak his game accordingly, and it just still oozed class, which is a very hard thing to do.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. Let's read in some more comments. Eddie says, yes, Box definitely definition of Rolls Royce in cruise control right to Rio. Esme says Rio was ahead of his era. That's a fair point, actually.
Yeah.
David T says easy answer.
Tyler Blackett. Wow.
Tyler Blackett is the best defender in our history, David T. Shout out to David T. I know you're on United fan, also you're on loan at Madrid right now as well, like myself. So, but shout out to you, man. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Sorry, 1 second, guys. Apologies. Right, sorry about that. Just got a message. Easy Tyler Blackett is the best defender in our history. Yes, shout out to David T, man. So
big up David T.
But yeah, that's it's not happening. It's not happening. When you think of centre backs, there were so many top ones in '9. Oh yeah, that was the era in the '90s and like early to mid 2000s. That was the sort of the centre back. That was the era of the centre backs. And then I think that when Ronaldo and Messi came onto the scene, that basically sort of pushed those to the side, because suddenly it was about wingers and fast play and going forward and cams and all the rest of it, and sort of centre backs took a real big back seat there. That's why I think that you're not going to find a centre back or even a goalkeeper that's going to win the Ballon d'Or like for ages, because they just don't have that same value that they have anymore unless you do something really, really phenomenal. Van Dijk was probably close, but I think he got who got ahead of Van Dijk. It was Messi? Was it? I think it was Messi. I think who came second. Box says England national team were loaded in that department. Ferdinand, Terry Campbell, Brown, King, Woodgate, Carragher.
Yeah.
Eddie's Football Waffle says yes, RDS, big points. Rio injected finesse and ball playing to stereotypical hard tackle English mentality. Eddie's for Matthew take over the show, pal. Thanks, Eddie.
It's not my show to take over. Big up Eddie as well, by the way.
Thanks, man.
His channel's fantastic.
By all means, yes, head over to Eddie's, man. So it's always a good laugh every time United basically lose, man. I love it, man.
Give Eddie a subscribe and follow him.
RDS, be honest, do you think Terry was a little overrated? Like, you can make an argument he's not top 5 EPL sleepers in history.
You can
make an argument. You can make an argument. But he was still a really good centre back. and that's the thing. It's
I think he goes top 10. I don't think he makes top 5, but I think he makes top 10.
In history is always very difficult these days because like you have so many people that like okay they only started watching football when John Terry was around, so they wouldn't even seen JAAP STAM play. So it's always very difficult because it's like when did you actually start watching football? Because I know people are going to be biased based on you're going to have Liverpool fans but Van Dijk's the best centre back of history because they only started watching football in a period of time. So I always think it's better to judge based on like eras and teams than history sometimes because it can be quite difficult. First of all, shout out to David T. David T, thank you so much. Is it the joke, the Tyler Blacker joke? But thank you for becoming a YouTube member.
Big up, David T.
Appreciate it. I'm getting a lot of members subscribing, so it's motivating me to actually try and produce more membership-based content. So we're doing the member hangouts from tomorrow, and I'm always open to more ideas for specific member-based videos. I think what I probably will do is I'll probably be recording like player profile videos that are specifically for members, and then obviously tiering it and what have you. So I'm going to brainstorm. If you have any suggestions for membership content, let me know. Hopefully I can get a merch channel sorted at some point, shop sorted at some point and get discounts for that. But yeah, ideas are coming. They definitely are coming. But for now, members hang out and certain videos and polls. We're riding. Messi, but yeah, that was it. Yeah, I think that's who regarding Van Dijk. I think SMB after 2006 it's the World Cup win. That's when football changed. Yeah. Because I make a case of that's probably that coincided with the emergence of Ronaldo. I think that Ronaldo, I mean, he was always like there, but I think that he like after 2012 and 7, that was when Ronaldo was like, okay, right, this guy's a G, and it sort of drew that attention, you know. I see my mate. Oh, Matt is gone. Okay.
What did you do?
You're here. It's I don't know what's happening. Like, okay, I may bring Matty back in 1 second. Like, people are coming in and out. Let me change that up. Let's bring Matty in here. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem, man.
Sorry for being so late.
No, you're okay, Yasir.
Last minute errands, bro. Last minute errands out of nowhere, but I apologize.
So just to get you up to date, we're talking about low quick sub. People just said Loma, just trying to support fellow Nigerian brother. Your chat and guest also hosts a big up. Oh, thanks, David T, man. Thank you for supporting a fellow Nigerian, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Man, David T is also on loan with me at Real Madrid right now.
Shout out to David T.
We're waiting for United to sort out their nonsense at this moment in time, man. So I appreciate it, brother. I really do. So just to get us up to speed, we talked about just to get you in, Yasir, like what are your quick thoughts on, because we talked about JAAP STAM before you came on and then Rio, like in terms of quality as a centre back. I don't know whether you watched much of like JAAP STAM back in the day, and then obviously you would have watched Rio, but like what were your initial thoughts about both of those centre backs, man?
I didn't watch JAAP STAM as much as I did Rio, obviously, but
okay.
I don't know. I mean, I was JAAP STAM. I seen in his later days, especially like when he left to go to Juve. I mean, not Juve. I'm sorry, Milan. AC Milan. Yep. And I seen him. He's a phenomenal. I feel like he's underrated. I think what tends to happen is like the new generation legit see what they see and assume like what they see is like the best that's ever been. And they tend to forget prior, you know. And I think JAAP STAM kind of fits into that situation where I don't think the younger United fans have seen him play. But for me, he was like the guy was a monster. The guy was a beast. The guy was unbelievable. And this is me saying this because I seen him in his later years as well. So imagine in his prime. For me, 100%. I think people that say he's our best center back ever, I think people that say that they have a point. They actually he has a strong case for him to be considered our best center back that we've had at the football club. because he had everything. He had everything. Like, I mean, people are like nowadays. People look at a Virgil van Dijk, and he's considered the end all and be all of all center backs, and not in this generation. But people tend to forget the center backs that came prior. Like the center back, there used to be a time where center backs used like those guys. That Virgil van Dijk was like a norm for a lot of center backs in the world. You know, you had the Cannavaros and the Martinez and the Yap Stams and the Nestas, and it's that there was a time period where the center backs were just like there was abundance of absolutely world class center backs, but nowadays it's a hot commodity, and if you see a player like Virgil van Dijk, he sticks out like a sore thumb, because he just head over heels above everyone else. And for Rio, he's my favorite. I mean, he's the type of center back that I enjoy. No, I mean, I love the Vidic type, but then for me, it's like the Rio type, like where like the football intelligence, the calmness on the ball, the like the ones that read the game exceptionally well. Rio Ferdinand personified everything I just said. For me, he's the best center back in the Premier League era, in my general opinion. I think he's the best. Not only is he the best in
better than like Company and
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think yeah, Rio was the best in my opinion. I think he was better Company than Terry, and I rate Company and Terry extremely highly. But I think he was better. I think he had everything you needed in a center back. I mean, as that being said, I mean, we've seen what happened in 2011. You see what Barcelona did to our defense. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you saw. I mean, Vidic is my guy. Love Vidic, but we've seen what happened with Fernando Torres. So, I mean, there are moments where the defense certain like kind of make players certain like unbelievable players make center backs look foolish, but that's just the game, So no one's perfect, to be honest. You see what happened to Virgil van Dijk in the Champions League final, so which just became a meme. So but no, I think for me, I would put ahead Yap Stam ahead of Rio. That's just mine. Yeah.
Just quick going to the comments before we move on. So Mo says saw Stam deck 3 guys at a charity game. So yeah, him. This is when we're talking about like alpha guys, like with pure like, listen, I'm the Don, I'm it. That was Yap Stam. It was like, just you don't want to mess with the guy. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, back then when kind of footballers were, like just didn't roll around all the time and complain all the time. They just got up and just did what they did. It is what it is. Eddie says, big up, yes, see you, Prince, man. Box says, Stam and Ferdinand still play them friendly games for Soccer Aid. Plus, they look a cut above, shows technique, and never leaves a play. Exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, you can't, you can obviously, as a footballer, you lose pace, you don't have the energy, recovery, etc. But technique always stays, because that's something that's in here. And Stam and Ferdinand in particular, like, they had that. It just doesn't leave you. Ezemi says, I think the sentiment has evolved, hence why I said Rio was ahead of his time. It'd be interesting to see how previous CBs would have played in the air with the systems and pace of the game. That is an interesting point, but also you have to understand how the like, depending on the era, for example, for starters, we don't have the technology of goal line, VR, etc. The referees were often a lot more lenient with tackles and fouls and stuff. So, yes, for example, these days we now got more ball playing sort of things. Fair enough, but if the referee, for example, isn't blowing every time, then how can you get away? How can you get away with things if I'm making sense? You know what I mean? Like, so it's a difficult one to ask, because a lot of stuff in football obviously has evolved and has changed, and so I don't think you can just put the modern players and throw them back in, because I think even Messi would struggle back then. I think he'd still be good, But there's some games of referees you can just cut. They can just foul the guy, and it's like, yeah, it's a foul, but I'm not giving you a yellow card. And that's that. You know what I mean? And people can just do that all the time. So yeah, I think there's that. Shout out to Chainsaw. Chainsaw has gifted 5 memberships,
Chainsaw.
man. Really appreciate it. So if you want a free membership that's gifted, please go for it. Sorry, for some reason, Chainsaw doesn't actually show when you gift the membership. It doesn't show in the StreamYard. So thank you for showing it. So by all means, if you want a membership, it's gifted 5. Thank you for Chainsaw. For those who are watching a chat, want to become a member, get involved in the Red Devil Studio community, please consider getting one of those memberships. So really appreciate it, Chainsaw. Thank you so much. We were blessed with something. I'll probably towards the end. I'll probably have a brief because about membership related stuff. So we're getting a lot of new members recently, and I want to have an idea as to what you guys specifically want. So we were blessed with real tough men plus captain leaders back then. Yeah, I mean, do you honestly think that JAAP STAM would have allowed last season to happen on his watch?
No chance. JAAP STAM would be fuming. He had standards. Rio had standards. I'm going to go back to the older generation now, and a lot of people might not have seen these players play, but I was fortunate enough to. Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, they had standards. They wouldn't tolerate what Maguire and Lindelof are doing out on the pitch. And it's not, I'm against Maguire or Lindelof. Neither of them have been good enough. I think Maguire needs dropping just so he can get his head sorted out. His head's in a mess. His head's in the right state. If Fergie was in charge, he would have dropped him and left him out for a few games just so he's got himself sorted out.
Just quickly on that. I just genuinely believe the era we're living now. I genuinely believe that there's a sense of players believe that they have made it in their footballing career. The fact that they are at Man United, I'm at Man United. That's it. I made it. I'm the captain. That's it. Where these players we had before, it was different for them. Like playing for Man United was not. They never took it for granted. I think a lot what we see now is players are playing for Man United as, yo man, I did it. I've reached my pinnacle of football. That's it, and they literally are taking it for granted. Where these guys, man, we had, it was every single day, every single training, every single moment was for them. It was they never took it for granted. Putting out that shirt, putting out the shirt was a privilege to them.
The difference is, a lot of players now at Man United, to get there, I've made it, I'm playing at Man United. Back then, Man United was the platform for the players, the theatre of dreams. You go make your dreams a reality in the stadium. You've got the platform, go and make your name now. A lot of them is, I've got there, I'm happy. Mentality's got to change.
I think the biggest thing is that if we're going to be honest, and we'll move on because we've been talking about Ferdinand for a while. So, but I think the big thing is that it's I don't say social media, but social marketing. I think that ironically enough, one of our players almost started the trend in David Beckham, where it was the idea that wow, you can actually be a superstar, like a celebrity outside of football. And David Beckham was almost the pioneer for the kind of what I would call celebrity footballer, the guy who could do stuff off the field and do, and make a name for themselves potentially. And I just think now in the era of social media that footballers are okay, it's not just about football anymore. It's about my name, my brand. So I need to be able to be good at Twitter, Facebook. I've got my own clothes brand. I've got my own perfume. I've got this, I've got that. I've got my own dancing, whatever. It's all about the brand right now. So the football is just to sort of generate interest. But the reality is that it's just part of a bigger brand. Yeah. And I think that's where, that's difficult to change unless the footballer themselves have the mentality to continue to want to win. And right now, I don't see many young footballers that I know that are coming in that have that, that kind of grift mentality,
Well, hopefully Eric can change that. Eric can instill that It should be football first and foremost. Your brand is based on how good you are on the pitch and how consistent you are. If these players actually play to the level we know they can play at, and that, I wouldn't have an issue with all their branding, all their dancing, all their social media antics, because they're performing. A lot of the players get criticised nowadays because they're not putting in 100% effort, but they're more than happy to sit there and show off and parade on social media and push their brand out. But focus on your football. One of Sir Alex's biggest things was you focus on your football first and foremost. Man United didn't have a Twitter account until Sir Alex retired. There's a reason for it. He didn't want to play as distracted by what was happening on social media.
That, you know, one thing also, I mean, this last thing I'm going to say about this, Sir Alex Ferguson, people criticize him for this, but he did have a way of selling players that in today's age, people would have like looked at him insanely crazy for selling. Like when he saw Beckham, like we talked about JAAP, STAM, man, they were not at that point, they were just not at their end of their career, but he sold them. And it's like, as much as you can say about him falling out with certain players, the fact that like the dressing room can see that you sold David Beckham, you sold JAAP, STAM, like that vibrates through the whole dressing room, where like people know, like, hey, my place at the United, no matter how much what I did for United, no matter what I do, I can be replaced just like that. He installed that in the players, where like, be grateful that you're playing for Man United, because you might not be playing for Man United come next season.
The thing is, with them players you just highlighted, JAAP, STAM, Fergie himself admitted he made a mistake in selling STAM. With Beckham, he thought Beckham was getting too big for Man United. I know that sounds kind of weird because of how big Manchester United are, but how big the brand Beckham was going, there was always going to be a clash, and he moved him out, and it actually worked for him because we carried on being successful even after Beckham went. Yeah,
exactly.
So it was actually good. It was actually a good call by him at that time. And whatever Fergie done, I always backed it, because I always knew he done what was best for the club and for the squad he was managing.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the whole JAAP, STAM thing, you know, even if he admits that it was a mistake, you know, it also at the end of the day, it's instilled that identity where like no single player, no matter how big he is bigger than a football club. And then at the end of the day, it's like we saw the JAAP, STAM, and yeah, you can say even he can admit that it was a mistake, but then it instills the idea that we will always have another JAAP, STAM. No, even though that's like maybe like when I say like that sounds crazy, but they instilled that mentality, like we will have the next Rio, we will have the next STAM, we will have the next Beckham. Like at the end of the day, this football club will always be bigger than one individual.
Yeah. Well, it's old Beckham. He replaced him with Ronaldo. We all saw what Ronaldo went on to become at Man United.
Exactly. Like enough said, basically.
Yeah.
Let's quickly move on. So, I mean, obviously, Nemanja Vidic played alongside Rio Ferdinand as well. So, like, and that centre back pairing went on to win again Premier League titles back to back. I'm just going to quickly just load up my man Vidic's Premier League stats anyway. So just round them off. So a quick look. Sorry, obviously Serbian international. Here we go. So 211 appearances for the club, for United, 15 goals, 149 wins, 27 losses, 95 clean sheets out of those. Goals conceded 133, tackle success 75%, clearances off the line 4, interceptions 368. Recovery tackles 935, duels won 1,285. He had 3 assists in his career. He had 15 goals. He had 39 yellow cards. He wasn't as disciplined as Stam or Rio and got 6 red cards, committing 236 fouls as well. Although in the 15 goals that he scored, 12 of those goals were actually headed goals, so he was actually good. Yeah, Vidic, from that perspective. So those are his sort of generic sort of stats. Obviously, he was part of that. He was Premier League champion. Five Premier Leagues, 2006 to 7, 2008, 2008, 2009. So obviously that treble winning. He also won the Premier League in 2010, 11, 2012, and 2013. So won the Premier League 5 times in Manchester United. Player of the season in 2008 and 9 and 2010, 11. And obviously he won the Champions League as well. You know, so the Nemanja Vidic is a very, very, very successful Manchester United centre back, and certainly in the league. What do you guys think of the impact that Vidic had on the club and in the Premier League at the time?
I love Vidic. It was the perfect partner for Rio because he loved that physical battle. You watch him every single game. He'd go toe to toe with the forward. You watch him against Drogba. He loved that physical battle against them big, bulky, proper old school centre forwards. We don't have many of them around nowadays, which is a shame. Right. He loved that sort of battle. He wasn't the most disciplined, but he loved that fight. And we paid £7 million for him from Spartak Moscow, one of the best boys we've ever made, and he was an unknown player. I wish we could go out and find someone like him again. And he come in. He complemented Rio's game perfectly because Rio, cool, calm, composed, always didn't really want the physical battle, always looked to just place himself where he could receive the ball once it dropped. Vidic, the complete opposite. He loved that. For me, Vidic, aerial commander, he loved jumping and putting his head on the ball. And that, what Rio done well, Vidic complemented it because Vidic was a different type of defender. I want to bring up some. I know a lot of people are going to bring up Torres. Yeah, Torres, it's 3 and 15. Yeah, Vidic most of the time had Torres' number.
True.
Yeah. I don't want to hear about Torres owned him. Torres didn't own nothing. Yeah, Torres owned nothing. Yeah. 3 in 15. I think Rashford's got a better record against Van Dijk, if I'm not mistaken.
That is. Don't see that. See, Matt. This is where things get real. When you start talking about when you start bringing those stats up about Van Dijk, and that's when it gets a bit personal to some. You know, like Rashford has more goals.
I know it gets a bit personal, but all I see is Torres this against Vidic, Torres that against Vidic. So I'll actually look at the numbers, and then we'll go and compare your supposed greatest ever centre back up against one of our players who's underperforming, and he's got just as good a goal record, but you don't want to talk about that element. Why don't you want to talk about it? Hold the same energy. Hold that same energy.
Hold that. Did you hear that, chat? Hold that same energy. Hold that same energy. Guys, so if you're new, by the way, make sure that you're liking the vid. It helps the algorithm, and remember to comment when when your video goes. Like, I don't know, sometimes the video doesn't process or whatever, but it does help with the algorithm to share the channel if you comment when the video goes live. So really appreciate it. Try and really push the channel for the latter half of this year to grow it and do different things. Also, consider subscribing to my second channel, Red Marvel. I've just posted a full Love and Thunder review and the Boy Scene 3 review. Spoiler, please don't watch 4. It's not a great movie in my personal opinion.
So yeah, just a side note to continue what you just said just now. I've seen the commercial, like the trailer commercials they show, and I just by the commercial, as I told myself, I'm not watching this crap. Like shout out to the people that watched it, but no way. I was not even planning on watching it anyways. I was like, what is this? Anyways, let's just back to Vidic.
Yeah, go on.
You know, it makes me very I feel sad, man, guys. Like, I miss these players so much. Like, we need. I mean, it's like you look at it. I'm like, in one sense, I'm like, we need a Vidic type player. You know, that's what one thing I loved about Vidic was like, he's no nonsense, didn't take no BS, like didn't care about the opposition. Like, I miss that. I miss that type of center back that like like the previous what's your name, brother, again? Matt.
Matt.
Yeah, Matt said, "We'll go in with a header. We'll literally take on the challenge. That's nice. Will literally instill fear at the opposition strikers and opposition forwards. No one wanted to mess with Vidic. No, people were terrified of Vidic. Like the guy was a monster, and I mean, it's just so sad that we need like I'm looking at us what we need. Like, man, imagine if we had a prime Vidic right now. Man, you look at this like I think that's one of the things about United that really hurts. It's like we lost our fear factor. We did. In terms of the manager, the fear of that manager was Sir Alex Ferguson had the presence where he had the whole league on string. He the whole entire league hated Sir Alex Ferguson because they feared him so much. And every referee would literally go before the game, go to the changing room, just go to the Sir Alex Ferguson office just to talk to him prior to the game. Because that's how terrified even the referees used to be of Sir Alex Ferguson. And then you had players like Vidic, where you see imagine like playing against Vidic right now. And Mo Salah, man. Oh, imagine, guys. It's the fear that people like we used to store in people before like this notion where like there's a saying that like we used to win games in a tunnel before a ball was even kicked. We won the game, and that's the thing that's the thing that hurts so much about us United fans because it's like at a point with United, there was no sense of worry. There was no sense of worry. Our belief was through the roof. Where any game going into, we never worried because there was not what there's not much to be worried about. We didn't care. They didn't care who we played because at the end of the day, we had the best manager in world football, Sir Alex Ferguson. We had one of the greatest center back pairing the world has ever seen. We had unbelievable players, and Vidic just personifies everything I just said. This guy was like we. I look at our center backs. One of the things I look at our the center backs we had prior, um, especially after Vidic and Rio, was we had our center backs were soft. Our center backs would get bullied. Our center backs were weak. Elderly. What was it? I remember that West Brom game where the guy, the striker, just bullied Lindelof. Lindelof won the header, and I think we ended up drawing that game 1-1. Like, come on, that would never happen to Vidic. Vidic would never get bullied, and I mean, I 100%, man. For me, it's like hence why, like, in a way, I don't really like ranking, especially our center backs that we had because, man, we need. I mean, we need a Steve Bruce. We need what you call it, JAAP STAM. We need a Vidic. We need a Rio. We need someone. We need someone like at this point,
Speaking of Steve Bruce, he's actually our next subject. Actually, Steve Bruce. Now, I must confess, I didn't watch a lot of Steve Bruce around. So, but well, I did, but obviously not because he was at Manchester United when United it was still the first division, but he also played on into the Premier League. So his career, he practically had almost a 10-year career at United. He was at United for one.
He was captain. He was
8,
captain Man United as well.
9 seasons, 9 seasons at Manchester United, 5 in the first division, and then 4 in the beginning of the Premier League. Honors wise, obviously, for United, he won the Premier League. 3 Premier Leagues, 92, 93, 93, 94, 95 to 96.
Did he win the double with us?
Yeah. So he won exactly. So that was in 93, 94, which was the Premier League and the FA Cup. And he won 3 FA Cups as well. He won the European Cup European Cup Winners' Cup when it was back in the day in 1990, 1991. So for anyone that says that United, the amount of European trophies United, we actually have a lot more European trophies. But anyway, I won't go into there because
Yeah.
you know certain clubs that don't have Champions Leagues or European Cups count these other trophies as Champions Leagues. You know, so just saying. And a European Super Cup in 1991. He also won the Player of the Year for Division 2 and Premier League Top 10 Season Award as well, amongst other things, some of his achievements at Manchester United. And obviously, Steve Bruce has gone on to obviously manage and have a relatively, I wouldn't say he had a successful managerial career, but certainly compared to other players, ex-players that have gone on to become managers, he's been relatively successful in terms of jobs.
Management is hard. I think that's something that us fans really don't understand is how hard it is to be managing. Like managing at, especially in the Premier League, is it's hard, man. It's hard. And you know it involves a lot of how do I say, luck. Because he was at Newcastle, and I mean, imagine Newcastle under Mac Ashley was actually a literal nightmare. It was a literal nightmare. So, I mean, I never liked his style of football. I think his style of football it's like outdated and in the
Well,
past.
he's a I mean, a part of me is like kind of what do you expect because he was a defender. So I don't know many defenders, ex-defenders, I mean, in fact, that's a question for the chat and maybe for the panel. How many ex-defenders that are now managers actually play attacking progressive football?
Very few. It's look at Gareth Southgate. He's got a fantastic array of attacking talents in the England national team, but he still plays very defensive.
Exactly.
I think if you're a defender, you're always going to be inclined to coach your team in that way and play your team in that way. Now, talking to Steve Bruce, for me, one of the most underrated centre backs going.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Sorry, before I interrupt you, shout out to Chainsaws where it says need to go bigger on the channel panel. Remember to like the vid. Eddie, I'll let you know. I'll let you have that, but we know who's best. I'm assuming they're referring to the Torres versus a Vidic debate. So, but thank you, Chainsaw, so much for the chat. We will definitely. Yes, is that you eating? That's a loud potato chips, man. You just hear it. I was like, what is that? What is that noise, man? Jeez, no, fair enough. Right. Sorry. So yeah, thank you, Yap the Chainsaw Man, and see on the members hangout tomorrow as well. Manny, go on, buddy.
Apologies, I thought I muted myself. I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like no, sorry, go on, Manny, go on.
So talking to Steve Bruce played in an era where you could get away with a rough tackle, but your forwards were extremely physical and they didn't mind kicking you. As well as that, back then, a lot of the teams, I know it's old-fashioned and outdated, but it's 4-4-2. You had two strikers up top. You didn't have the option of like a +1 covering you defense. You had to go man for man. You had to be able to stop him because your fullbacks were generally out wide, stopping the wingers, the wide players, and you had two up top. So you've essentially got to go man for man, and you've got to stop the forward. And that you haven't got the option of like a +1 covering you in case you make a mistake. Steve, if I'm not mistaken as well, I believe he got 19 goals in a season, Steve Bruce. It was either Bruce or Pallister. I know one of them did. Yeah. 19 goals for a centre-back in a season. To put that into context, most forwards nowadays, you're looking at 15 to 20 goals.
Yeah, that's true.
He played centre-back and he's scoring like a forward. So that's underrated. He put his head where most people wouldn't put their feet. And brilliant reading of the game. Just an all-round world-class player, very underrated. I get why he's underrated by a lot of the newer fans and the younger fans. They never got to see him play. I was fortunate. I'm from the older generation. I did get to see him play. He's a fantastic, fantastic player and one that should be getting a tad bit more respect from not just Man United fans, but I think fan bases all over because of just how good he was back then.
I think the problem, why I don't think he gets a lot of respect is because people in a stupid way are judging him and they look at his managerial record and are like, oh, that must have mean that as a footballer he wasn't particularly good. And it's like, well, that clearly doesn't work like that, because that by that logic, I would say to Lampard, oh well, Lampard flopped at Chelsea and almost got Everton relegated. Therefore, Lampard was not a good footballer. That's obviously nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jurgen Klopp was shit. Come on, let's be honest.
Yeah,
Jurgen Klopp was
exactly.
terrible.
You know, there are not that many players. Like, I can't think of, aside from Zidane. Zidane's probably the only, because even Pep was an okay. He wasn't like
He was okay.
great
No, he was
or
actually good.
world-class. Like,
I don't think he was great, but I think he was good
yeah,
though.
he was good. He was okay. I'm not saying this with that, but it's like, but in terms of like, if we're talking about like, you know, Zidane is probably the only one where I'm like, okay, this guy was world class, and he delivered as a manager with that free hit at Madrid.
Yeah.
But there are not that many other players that can that make that transition, if any, really. And Zidane's the only one that I can think of.
Mourinho was not a good player, and
No, it's
I mean, Cyrus Ferguson he was a decent. I mean, his footballing career was kind of like riddled with politics, you know. So, I didn't know I didn't know anything about his footballing career until I watched his documentary, which is phenomenal. People need to check it out. It was good. It was very good. But Steve Bruce, yeah, 100%. I mean, Matt hit the nail on the head. He's underrated. He's very underrated.
Oh yeah, sorry, and Cruyff. Yeah, I should put Cruyff into that part as well, as the manager who just football and went into. Yeah,
I mean, Ronald Koeman was a better player than he was a manager. Like, Ronald Koeman was a good player, not the greatest manager. But no, for Steve Bruce, for me, underrated, man. I didn't get the privilege to watch him because I was simply not old enough to watch him. It was before my time. But for me, 100%, guy who captained Man United, won a double Man United, won countless FA Cups. I mean, captaining Man United as well. I mean, what more can you say? It's the problem, and is I feel like sometimes I wish we had like a I don't know if someone might invent this or something like that, but I wish we had like an educational aspect to football as well. I feel like a lot of football now is people just talk. Yeah, you have to talk sport and all that stuff. So it's a lot of like sensationalist talk. With football, where people just talk about like the now instead of like educating people on
history.
Yeah.
And I wish we had like a section in football today, especially in the media, where people have the access to that, where where like you bring a group ex players that has retired, and then they literally this is like a have a every day after match of the day or something like that. We talk about a player that a lot of people don't know much about because unfortunately Steve Bruce kind of falls into the category where he's getting to that period where like there's too much of this social media fans and all that stuff where they simply don't know what they're talking about because they simply have not seen the players play. So in one sense it gets to a point where they're disrespectful where they talk about like Steve Bruce and players like him and his generation and in a very negative way because they're like, nah, it must be absolutely horrendous, so because they never seen him and there's nothing for them to judge them on.
You bring up a good idea. I think there's two reasons. I think it's remember because I mean, even just as a deal on this channel, maybe it's a good. I think hence my player profile idea that I might do that as a series for members where I do retrospects and I look back. I give people the stats. I show people things because I think that unfortunately, part of the problem is you're right. It's a Times social media thing. I think another thing is also just how football media is distributed. Because in order for you to upload or video or share things, you before you know it, you get a copyright strike or you get videos, etc. So you can't really. I'd love to pop like a 90-minute video showing Steve Bruce in the 90s doing his thing. But what's going to happen? YouTube or someone's going to claim the. So it's very difficult to even share that media without, unless even on Twitter and other maybe it's just difficult to share that stuff without the football organizers going, "Oh, it doesn't belong to you, can't do that."
And then
And sorry, go on.
I apologize. And also I just feel like there's just so much like there's too many like this um thing in social media and the media where you have ex rivals where they tend to speak about players for like for example like Liverpool ex Liverpool players and all the stuff. They don't never it, till today it's like a rivalry. So they would not they don't want to like speak good of a very good player, but just because he played for Man United. They rather not. They rather not just be honest. Be like, okay, you know what, that so and so. I know I hated him. I hated his gut, but he was a phenomenal player. Honestly, he was unbelievable. Like for them, you know, you have like a Michael Owen type of guy, you know, where he would never wants to give any credit to anything United. So like they go in the opposite direction, and I feel like there's too much of that in the media, where like it's just too much for me. And for me, I think 100%. I just feel like 100% people just simply need to be educated. One another player for me, I generally feel absolutely devastated about Dennis Irwin. Dennis Irwin was an unbelievable player. But
I
no
see.
one,
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm going to go into that because, like, I am going to have a do to be able to talk about greatest Manchester United fullbacks. So, but I want to
yeah,
keep it as a separate sort of video because you're right. Dennis Owen was a G, but I want to keep this specifically towards centre
yeah,
backs. But I definitely will. In fact,
absolutely,
we'll round up soon. So I just want to give one shout out to one final player, and then in the chat, and um, obviously with the panel, we're just trying to think of ranking them. But I'm going to go back to Matty here because I'm assuming that you also watch this guy. I also watch this guy as well to a certain extent as well, and hopefully I've spelt this right. So then we Gary
Yeah.
Pallister,
Yeah.
Gary Pallister, man. You know, so Matt, Gary Pallister.
Yeah.
What like? How can you describe this guy?
Oh, Gary Pallister, he had everything. He was a leader, good in the air, good on the board. Just for me, Gary Pallister's the most underrated centre back we've got. I know we just spoke about Bruce, but Gary Pallister was something else. He was so class and so good for us. It's unreal. I can't tell you how good he is. You've got to go watch him. Same as Steve Bruce. Watch him and just watch how they played and watch how football from then to now has changed. Back then, players they wouldn't think twice about just throwing through you 2-footed and they'd get away with it. Nowadays, you can't do that. Back then, it was a physical battle, and each of them stood up to it. Both of them world class, both of them very underrated by the fan base. I appreciate them because I was fortunate enough to watch them play in their prime. I was fortunate enough to see Man United lift the league title with Fergie, the first one, and that I was fortunate enough to see all the success throughout the 90s and watch all the great players, and I loved watching each and every single one of them. I understand why the younger fan base don't appreciate him as much because they never got to see him play, and that's where all I would say to the younger fans: don't take my word for it. Just go watch them for yourself. You'll appreciate how good they are, especially compared to what we've got now. I mean, we've gone backwards in a massive way. Harry Maguire wouldn't be in that dressing room if you've got Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister in there because they wouldn't allow him in.
yeah.
That they wouldn't allow a lot of our modern day players in there, to be fair, because of how inept they are. They had serious standards for the club, and they saw Manchester United as the platform to go and make their names, and that's what they did.
Unbelievable. I mean, I
I'll
can't speak.
just quickly read some quick stats actually, just for things in context. So, obviously, alongside Steve Bruce, he won 4 Premier League titles: the 92, 93, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 95, 96, 96, 97, 3 FA Cups, Football League Cup, European Cup Winners' Cup, and European Super Cup. So, obviously, he was the individual player awards, Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year, PFA Players Year of the Year as well. Obviously, he was one of the rocks alongside Steve Bruce in this team. I'll see if I can get some specific defensive stats. Just give me 2 seconds. He was obviously one of England. I also think is one of England's Was he English or Scottish? Yeah, he was English. Yeah, so I think one of England's solid centre backs as well as part of that process. Let me quickly do. Sorry about this, guys. I had my stats here, and then it just kind of my screen refreshed. Where is it? Okay, here it is. I think this is it here. Right. Playing time. Stats. Oh, it's not. Okay, fine. I'll put it. But from what I saw with from when I was also a kid with Pallister at Pier, like you can make an argument that Pallister and Steve Bruce definitely rivaled the Vidic and Ferdinand partnership.
Yeah.
If not possibly superior, given what Matty said in that. Certainly in the early days of the Premier League, like you had to be physical. I don't necessarily think that Bruce or Pallister were the most technically gifted centre backs. Although, as Manny rightly said, Steve Bruce was actually pretty good going forward, considering the amount of goals that he scored. But like I said, you can make that case. I mean, what do you think about that, Manny?
Let's make that case. I would put Pallister and Bruce slightly ahead of Ferdinand Vidic on the basis they purely had to go man for man because most teams back then played with two forwards. A lot of the teams, and you look how football is for now, it's you have one forward. So you've got the option of going essentially a +1. So you can go to your man and you've got cover. Back then, you didn't have that cover. You had to be able to stop your man. If you couldn't, he's getting through on goal, and more than likely, he's going to score. Now, that is a difference. It's not that the pitches were a lot rougher, the strikers were a lot more physical, and you couldn't rely on anyone. You had to do your job. You had to stop him. So I would put Pallister and Bruce slightly above Ferdinand and Vidic, simply because they had to defend a lot more. There was a lot more required by having to go man for man because they reach up against the forward. They've got no one covering them. So if they make a mistake, they've got someone there. If they make a mistake, the forward's through on goal. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably scoring.
See, I can't speak about Pallister. Matt, this is you're low key in a way a gift for us United fans because you're educated, you've seen it, and you can educate us. And I think that's one thing I always applaud United fans to do is always get educated about your football club, because it will increase how much you care about this football club. And this United, we have one of the richest history. Our football club means a lot more than people think it is. It's just not a regular football club. It means a lot. And he has a strong, rich history. And for me, I have never seen Gary Pallister play. So I just got to go off of what Matt said. Unbelievable. If Matt, if you say you put Rio and Vidic ahead of him, hey, by all means, man, I'll go with it, man. I'll go with it.
It's not about me putting them ahead of them. It's the thing I would say to all the younger United fans: go and watch as much of them as possible, and just watch it for yourself, and you'll see it for yourself. I was fortunate enough to see it because I'm from the older generation, so I was fortunate enough to see all the great players from the 90s and whatnot. Yeah, it's not about me educating you. The biggest education I can tell every United fan from the younger generation: go back, watch football from the 90s, watch Man United from the 90s, watch how the team played, watch your Bruces, your Pallisters, your Dennis Irwins, your Gary Nevilles, your Peter Schmeichels, your early Beckham, early Scholes, early Keane, early Giggs, Cole when we brought him in, before Cole, Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona. Go watch these players for yourself. Now, what I say, as much as I'm talking about how great these players are, it's irrelevant. Go watch them for yourselves. You'll see just how good they are, and you'll appreciate them for what they've done for the club. It's an honour for me to be able to speak about the older players to the younger fans. But the biggest thing about it is go watch them for yourselves. You'll appreciate just how good they are by your own admission because you'll see how they played.
Right. As we run, I'm just gonna quickly read some comments. Get your questions in, guys, if you have any. We have been streaming for quite some time. I'm gonna get what I'm gonna do is ask you guys in the chat to rank your top 5. Also obviously Yassi and Maddie rank their top 5 based on who we talked about, but also potentially some honorable mentions that we haven't mentioned centre back wise that we could include in the conversation, and then we'll basically round things up. So just a few. Let's have a look. Let's go back. Let's have a look. And go back up. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let's start with SMB. So this is a few points. Vidic was the enforcer. Eddie says Vidic was awesome, proper battler, wouldn't overthink at all. Best January signing in history. Fair point. I remember him and Everett both came in and struggled a bit, and then they flew. Exactly. That's why I never judge someone initially. Always give them time. Gotta say, Vidic was great, Matt, but Torres got him sent off twice. He was a bogey adversary. Box, Vidic and Everett, them old school scout buys about 6 million each, turned into world-class players. Whatever happened to United scouting department? There you go.
Yeah, I mean,
Vidic,
I to be honest, I don't think they're bad. I think this two ideas I always had about our scouts is either they've been are really good, and like in our board and the people that run our transfers, they never listen to them, and they just get ignored, or they're just outdated. To be honest.
Fair. I miss Vidic versus Torres' chainsaws. I think is probably trolling. So you need to win a treble chainsaw, but we'll talk about that on the members hangout. I missed the Fernando Torres missing open goals at Old Trafford. That was also a thing. Chainsaw, great centre back, but Rio was the reason that defense looked out of this world. Rio was the first VVD in the Premier League. Fair enough. Box says Bruce was the Vidic to Pallister's Ferdinand. Eddie says Yassir, shameful Mucho Mike with the munchies. Box, Bruce was a bit like Terry, like a manager on the pitch, organizing, dictating on the back with a physical range. But also in his early United career, popped up with some big goals. He didn't look that big either. Must have been about 5'10", which is probably quite short for a centre back these days. Now says, when is Man United all or nothing come out to Adam? So is that a thing?
Is
that a thing?
I don't think it will be.
It can't be. It literally can't be. It can't be. If it is, then it'll be eye-opening, but it can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Thoughts on super fans and top gooners getting hyped gas up over Arsenal? Jesus, you're watching too much Luca. I think you're watching a lot of Arsenal sort of stuff like that. I do watch. Obviously, I watch Luca. I support Luca. Go and subscribe to him. But like I don't really pay attention to Arsenal fans before the season starts, to be honest, because or even preseason in general, because it doesn't really mean anything, as he rightly said. Now they're saying exactly Sanchez this. Like, let's just wait and see. You know, he could be a massive
Red
flop.
Devil. We had a guy named Preseason Pirlo.
Yeah, Andres, who hopefully will be successful at Fulham. So all the best to him. Lowell Maguire would be cleaning past and Bruce's boots. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Maguire will be taking out the cones, and Ollie will be the P teacher with a whistle and a stopwatch.
Stop disrespecting Ollie. Come on, he's gone. Let it go. Let it go, and appreciate him as the player he was. He was a fantastic player for us.
That's another player. That's another manager that is treated. They look at his career as a player worse because of his managerial career.
Yeah.
Come on, Ollie's a legend, man. People need to let that go. Move on.
Yeah.
My ranking of the centre backs, according to my exposure: Rio, Vidic, Stam, Bruce, Pastor. So I guess that's the first thing. I think Pastor could carry the ball. Plus, for a big lad about 6'5", he had a decent bit of speed. Okay, fair point. Lol, Matthew reeling off those names. They were the good old days. They definitely were good old days. But we need to make new days, and that's the reason why United. Like, part of the reason why it's so sad making this list is that the centre backs we're talking about were centre backs that ended their careers in 2013, 2014. You know, and it's almost been 8 to 10 years since, and we haven't talked about any other centre back since then. You know, I'd hoped Varane would blossom. He's injury prone, unfortunately.
I think this season Varane will kick on.
Hopefully, Matt. Hopefully.
Box also says, I'm going to get to Eddie's questions. I'd say fair honorable mentions would be Johnson, Berg, O'Shea, Brown, and Silvestri.
O'Shea was underrated. Yep.
I definitely agree. Johnson as well. He had a very good partnership with JAAP STAM. I definitely agree with that. Brown, to be fair, peak Brown was actually all right. Towards the last 2-3 years, I think he did get a bit iffy, but peak Brown, is actually better than Maguire. And a lot of our centre backs, to Lindelof, and a lot of our centre backs.
I miss Johnny Evans. Red Dove, I miss Johnny Evans. I don't know why we sold him, man.
Leicester fleeced us, man. Leicester fleeced us badly. Leicester fleeced us with that. They did.
We didn't send him to Leicester. We sold him to West Brom.
West Brom, yeah.
No. I mean, when I'm saying Leicester fleeced us, I mean like Leicester fleeced us to.
With Maguire.
With Maguire, and then obviously the fact that they obviously got Johnny Evans, you know. So now it's that was what I was meaning. These two questions. Eddie says, "Who do you think will be United's top centre back this season?"
I will say Varane and Martinez if we get him.
I agree.
Okay, I think we're going to get Martinez. It sounds like he wants to. He's. I'm getting the impression that he's going to force a move, and I just think that working with Ten Hag, wanting to be with him, etc., that's just going to be the thing, you know. So, I think we should be okay. Fingers crossed. And then free signings, Frank de Jong. Well, we'll talk about transfers, I think, a lot of time. So, because United, I don't know what's going on with them right now with transfers. Eddie says, how well do you think Maguire would have done in Bruce and Pallister's day?
He'd be on the bench.
And that was a physical period as well. Yeah. That's no nonsense. None of this crying stuff. No.
Back then, it was a proper physical game. A lot of players used to get injured quite easily, and the rest didn't really care. You were allowed to go in hard but fair. Steve Bruce, I don't know if he got his nose broken in the game or if he played with a broken nose in a game. Yeah, it tells just how physical it was.
You just had to get on with it. Get on with it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys. So what would you say as we just round this up? I'll start with you, Maddie. What would you rate as your top 5 centre backs of all time for Manchester United? Starting with 5 and then going in ascending order.
Right. At number 5. At 5, I'll go Vidic. Then I'm going to go Pallister and Bruce. Rio's number 2. JAAP STAM's number 1.
Okay. Fair enough. I have a feeling I'm going to be fairly similar. Yassir, man, are you there?
Yeah.
What are you rating as your top 5?
I'll go off the players I've seen. Unfortunately, so I'll have. Unfortunately, I apologize. I have to really apologize because I haven't seen him.
No, play. It's okay. Can I go by what you've seen? So
Pallister, I'll have 5. 4, I'll have Bruce. I have Vidic 3rd. I have Rio 2nd, and I have JAAP STAM 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think we all have the same, because I would probably put Pallister 5, Vidic 4th, Pallister 5, Vidic 4th, Steve Bruce 3rd, Rio Ferdinand second, and then Jaap Stam first. It's always great to have a consensus that everyone is basically like, yeah, the best United defender of all time was Jaap Stam, you know. So it's shout out to Jews, shout out to Factos man, Factos, shout out to you for
Big
the
up
super chat,
Factos.
man, and
Thank
also
you.
for coming on that Friday show, which was that was chaos. That was chaos. Factos, if you're watching, send me your DM because we're gonna try and make that show weekly. I might change it into maybe we might have like a rivalry show. So we're getting Liverpool fans, City fans, Arsenal fans, like rivals. Maybe throw in a few Leeds fans if they're interested. And really, because that was fun, but it was definitely very chaotic. There was a lot. There was a lot of beef going on between people there, you know. So, but yeah, I appreciate it, buddy. And if you want to consider being a member as well, man, I think Chainsaw gifted a few memberships, so they should be there. But yeah, appreciate it for the super chat. Thank you so much. Bruce was underrated, 19 goals in a season. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just let me just ask you this panel. Just think of it this way: like Steve Bruce. I might bring this up in a certain member show. Steve Bruce scored more goals in a Premier League campaign than Romelu Lukaku for 100 million. Let that sink in.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Let that sink in. Steve Bruce, a centre-back, scored more goals in a Premier League campaign than 100 million Romelu Lukaku.
You know, see this thing. This is what I like about people. Like, when people talk about United now, it's like there's a reason why we are the most hated football club in all of England, when we are the biggest and most loved as well. How can you be the most loved and the most hated in the same time? Because we're Manchester United, man. We have Steve Bruce scoring 19 goals in a season. That's insane. Only happens at United.
Yeah, Ronaldinho, Rooney, that is prime 2,000 years, man. Yeah, I mean, I mean, what I will say is maybe we'll do a show on it as well, like comparing sort of eras. Is that I think one of the things that I don't like about modern football is that like it's too. I don't like how everything is so system based. How things are so almost like machine like. You know, that you almost get rid of and it's not just in football. Even the press. You know, it's almost like the only way footballers can express themselves now is when they go and do the dabbing and the dancing and all the rest on social media. But actually, back in the day, you expressed yourself on the field with the celebrations, with the way you played, with the dribbling, the skills, and all the rest of it. That was how people expressed themselves. And it's just weird that, unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. And the only way you can express yourself is via Instagram. You know, so. But it is what it is. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really, really appreciate it. I'm hoping to do this as like a regular kind of thing. I am on nights next weekend, so it might not. We'll probably have to delay the debate. I'll see. Maybe I might either push it earlier. I don't know. I might be incredibly tired from working busy hospital night shifts, but we'll see. I'll probably put a poll out as well in terms of like what kind of debate, United-based debate sort of discussion topics you want. Right now, I think we might either be looking at the best or going to the worst. So we talked about the best United number sevens. We might talk about what are the worst Manchester United number sevens, because that is a list. Or the worst United centre backs, you know, because that is also a list. So definitely, I will start putting up polls. So if you want to vote as to what debate topic you want to have for the weekend, Sunday as a regular thing, we'll definitely get that. But Yasir and Matty, thank you so much. Hope it was a good chat. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. No worries. Always happy for you to come back.
Having me, man. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate
it. Big up Yasir. Big up everybody in the chat. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for healing. Have a nice day, everyone.
Peace.
Cheers. Peace.